first of all, I want to mention that tonight's my father's yahrzeit.
Okay.
So our name should be L'Elias Neshamas Fi'ari Ben Binyamin. Okay, so it should be for my father's Shabbat and Aliyah. I also want to mention to you guys about two series of shiurim I'm going to be starting in Toronto. One is going to be starting this Sunday. What date is that? Today's the 14th.
Today's the 15th.
16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. This Sunday it's at Adat Israel, and it's at Adat Israel, and it's called for 9 in the morning, but we won't start until 9:15 at least. But the fact is the title of the series is Jewish State, Islamic State, Similarities, Differences.
It can be recorded?
Okay. No, that one will not be recorded. Okay, so it's basically going to look at the issue of definitions of a country, of groupings, and so on and so forth. It dawned on me that it made a little bit of... It's interesting because when people hear Jewish state, because Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about Israel as a Jewish state, how much are they thinking in their mind, well, there's an Islamic state, and therefore, because they think of Jewish as specifically religion. Most people think Jewish means religion, and so forth. So anyways, that's one class. And then, a week from Wednesday, that would be April 22nd, there's a series of 4 shiurim we're going to be doing at the B'nai Torah Shul. And that's going to be in Kabbalat Torah.
Don't we do that?
What?
Don't we do that?
We might have done that in this thing, but this is going to be a little bit more intense and really going through this stuff. Okay, so it'll be a 4-week shiur on Kabbalat Torah that we'll be doing at B'nai Torah.
What time? What day?
Okay, it's Wednesday. Starts Wednesday, April 22nd, and that's at 7:00 p.m. and then they'll have Mincha Marav afterwards. Okay? Okay.
Is there a Facebook group?
Not that I know. Okay. Anyways, what I want to do tonight is one idea. Okay?
Oh,
okay. So,
what's your sheet me, please?
we're on page 4. Okay? It's an idea. I just want to point out this idea because it's an idea of how, and I think we've sort of mentioned it before, but I just want to do it again and stress it as we get further into this. The fact is that one of the methodologies, or I think a basic concept of the methodological development of ethics in the Jewish mindset is from the dialectic. The dialectic comes about from the concept of tension and conflict.
What's the dialectic?
Okay. So the dialectic, in classic philosophical terms, the Hegelian dialectic is that there's a synthesis, there's an antithesis. Sorry, there's a thesis, there's an antithesis, and then a synthesis. But the point is,
what are the differences between all three?
Okay. So the point is, there's an idea.
Referring to.
Okay. So there's an idea, and there's a contrary idea.
Okay.
And then there's the conflict between the two. So, for example, in any...
I like hot dogs, I like burgers.
No, you have to get into... You're getting into ethical concepts. So the fact of the matter is that, let's say this would be an issue in terms of welfare. Okay, so the point is you want to help out others who are in need. Okay. On the other hand, you feel people should help themselves. So if you help out too much, if you just say help anyone in need, it could lead to people basically, not helping themselves, not doing anything for themselves. On the other hand, if you basically, you have this antithesis that says, no, people should take care of themselves. But then you have a problem of what happens when they can't take care of themselves. So you have this tension between these two values, and then you get some kind of resolution. Sometimes.
How do you get a resolution from philosophy without Torah?
Well, the fact is that you see, or you come to the idea that happened with the welfare state.
But
so what happens in the welfare state, what happens in the welfare state is that this is the way we feel we're going to get people to help out people, but on the other hand, still make them try and take care of themselves and so forth. The fact is that what you find in Torah, according to, let's say, Rabbi Soloveitchik, is that in Torah, he argues it's not even the aspect you come to a resolution. In Torah, you actually have to have both concepts coexist at the same time. And that's what he says is something unique within Torah. Like, for example, classic example is that Tisha B'Av, which is the saddest day of the Jewish year, is referred to as a moed. So it says even a day that's totally lacking that's totally sad, there's an aspect there has to be some aspect of
joy.
Of joy in the fact it's turned to a moed. Or he says in terms of Purim, he says Purim is a day of joy, but on the other hand, we also have the concept of Esther, Tanis Esther beforehand. We find many cases in halacha where you see coexistence. Like, for example, if a person has to confront the death of a father, let's say, and at the same point in time, with the death of the father, he gets a Yerusha. So the halacha is he has to make two brachas. Okay, on the death of the father, he has to say Dayan Ha'emes. And on the death of, on getting the Yerusha, if it's a good Yerusha, he's supposed to say, either Shechianu or Tov Meitu. Okay. The point is, a lot of people have difficulties with this. How can you even think about the fact you're getting an inheritance if your father passes away? The fact is that, because most people really have an idea that there should be one dominant emotion.
Right.
So therefore, you should say Dayan Ha'emes and not even think about the other thing. But the halacha actually maintains the fact that you actually say both brachas. Now, obviously, in your mind, you're obviously going to be overtaken by the emotions of sadness. But the fact is that you are to see the breakdown of what life is about, and to recognize that there's different parts to life. So you have this interesting halachic reality where you're supposed to say both brachas, which reflects, in a certain way, the complexity of the situation. So this is an example of coexistence of opposites. So he says that this is an aspect of Jewish ethical consciousness, that the Jew is conscious of contradictory ethics, or ethics in conflict at the same time, which then sometimes is dealt with by coming up to a resolution, and sometimes is dealt with by the coexistence of both concepts. Anyway, so the point is that's really something that you see in the Shaarei Yosher. He opens up with the idea of selflessness. God only gives, right? So God is one who's totally selfless, in the sense that everything God does is for the creation. His whole relationship with the created is to care for the created. And he says that's the essence of Kedusha. And he says that's an aspect that if we say we're supposed to be Kodesh, then we have to have this concept of having concern for the other. And therefore he develops ideas beforehand in terms of having concern for the other. Okay, that what you should do, you should have in mind the other person, and so forth. And that the difference between when you do something b'kedusha or not doing something b'kedusha has a lot to do with whether you are thinking of another, or whether your activity is totally out of self-concern, and so forth. So the point is, and he develops this idea that there's a value in being like God in terms of caring for others. Now he's going to go through an opposite value. Okay, the difference is with God, right? God also has no self-concerns. God doesn't need anything. So God as a model for us is a little bit different, because God is totally selfless, but he also has no need
challenges.
Doesn't have any need for self. Therefore, there's a difference of God. Therefore, he now goes into this other. He now goes into another perspective where he says, "Wait a second." He's saying God's holiness is totally different because God can be totally giving. We have an issue like that, and we can't be godlike. So now he's going to do it. Look on page 4. He says he's now going to develop the other side. And this is classic development of Jewish ethics. Amnu. Im yomer ha'adam lachnias etivo lagia lamida yisera shliya benafsho shum machshava shefer lahitiv latzmo. However, if a person actually wants to be totally godlike in this way, and only has concern for others, and he has no concern for himself, everything he does is just for others. And he believes this is what's going to make him holy. Because that's the way God is with all His created. He only acts towards others for their benefit because He has no personal interest. You might think that is, at first glance, that's what it's all about, to totally emulate God and so forth. Therefore, he's saying that Chazal, that's Chazal's point in the Medrash. Chazal is also saying this is not correct. What Medrash is he talking to? He's talking about the Medrash that says, on page 2, he says over here, page 2, he says over here, the Medrash says, Yakul Kamoni, can you be like me? Tamalomer ki kodesh ani. Says God says, I am holy. My holiness is above your holiness. Now that seems to just make a statement of reality. Only God is the ultimate example of holiness. Therefore, therefore His holiness is higher than ours. I
heard actually that's why when they refer to our holiness, the vav isn't there. It's just it's not complete.
The fact is though is that he's now taking us to another story. It's not just a statement of reality. It's not just making a statement. What the Shaarei Yosher is now saying in the paragraph on page 4, the Chazal is actually telling us an important lesson. God's holiness is greater than our holiness. That's not just the reality. That's the way it should be. And therefore, that's the way it's supposed to be. Because we're not supposed to emulate God in this way. In other words, what he's saying through the Midrashic statement that God's holiness is above us, it's not just the reality, it's also the way the reality should be.
It's like you can't be expected of something more than you are capable of doing.
Right. The fact is that God, being totally selfless, because of that, His Kedusha, if Kedusha is tied to selflessness, His Kedusha is unique. What He's saying to us is that, and that's not even a goal for you. That's not what you're about. So He says, because this value of God is above ours. Because God's Kedusha is only that He's only considers for is for the created. His whole purpose is for the created. His active, not for Him. So but why? Because He doesn't change. So He can't do anything for Himself. So the point is, there's an inherently difference between God and human beings. That's why He's different. He's different because He's inherently different. And that's why everything He does is for Nivraim. That's also part of His essence of being. But that's not what He wants for us. In other words,
where are we?
in the second paragraph here. Okay, that's not what he wants for us. In other words, there's an idea of emulating God. There's also an idea of recognizing that we're not God. Okay, and therefore recognizing that other aspect.
We can do wrong. Basically, we can do wrong.
Well, let's see what he's talking about. The point is that being wrong is a different issue. It's not a question of being wrong. It's the fact that we are inherently not God. We have physical drives.
Something wrong with what
we do. And the fact is what he's focusing on here is that God has no personal needs. God doesn't need to eat. Therefore, he doesn't have to be concerned of whether he's going to have food or not. But we need to eat. Therefore, that's why he says, now comes the next statement. In other words, that's not what God wants from us, and that's why Rabbi Akiva said, Chayecha Kodman. Your life comes first, because it's true, God's Kedusha is beyond us. Kedusha is tied to caring for others. Okay, God, his whole being is caring for others, but that's because he has no personal needs. But we who have personal needs, right? We can't be totally caring for others. In fact, that's not what God wants us from us. Okay? We have to work within our definitions, and therefore Rabbi Akiva stated that, in fact, our lives have to have priority. Okay, and that's why also he taught us to have this idea in how we understand the verse in a certain other way. What you don't like, don't do for others, because you can't define it in the positive way. Love your neighbor as yourself, because you should love yourself primarily. What it's saying is therefore this idea of love your neighbor yourself, to understand it in practical terms, don't do to the other what you don't want done for yourself. But the truth is that it's really proper for a person to take care of himself properly. So the truth is he's developing a very interesting idea here. He's really presenting what I'm saying in terms of conflicting values in the dialectic. He opens up with talking about the value of selflessness, the value of caring for others, and now he's saying, wait a second, because of our nature as human beings, we actually have to care for ourselves. And caring for ourselves has to have a priority.
Right.
So now we have a value of caring for others and caring for yourself. So now what do? Okay? Okay, so now he says, and he's going further with this idea of chayecha kodman, of caring for yourself. Od yesh makom b'sheyesod brias ha'adam nata habori yisbrach bo chukos ava atmo b'mida gedola mod. He says, and we also have a foundation for this in our very creation, because in our creation, God created within us a care for ourselves greater than anything else. Shaarei amru chachmei ha'emes metor kol voda b'zeh haloshen. Okay, and this is what when he says Chachmei Eves, that means the Kabbalists also say this idea. Ratza hein sof baruch hu lios meitiv hatava shlema shia afilu bushas mekabel. That God created the world in such a way that there would not be an embarrassment in receiving, because that's an aspect of self-concern. So you would think that if the only value is in caring for others, you'd have an embarrassing whenever you take something for yourself. But the fact is that you shouldn't feel totally, God created you don't feel totally embarrassed, because there's a value in that as well. Ad kan lashon kachin klach pitchei chacham vertal. They're saying where that's from. It's from a sefer by the Ramchal. The Indian zeh mathil she'ad heicha mikir koch havasatzma sherotz adam b'kav shelo yoser mekabim shinosen lo. Okay, so he says this is the idea. Therefore, this reveals how far the idea of caring for yourself, that a person is okay. He's actually developing another idea. He's now developing the idea that inherent in this idea of caring for yourself is also the aspect of doing things for yourself. So he says, even because it said the koach of caring for yourself, that a person wants to have something that he has accomplished on his own, rather than God just giving him a free gift. Okay, so now he's taking it a little bit further. The care for self also results in caring for the results of self, for your own efforts. In other words, you might think, I'm only caring for myself, I'm only caring for the results of myself. Gee, I want to just take care of my needs. But the fact is that caring for self, he's now expanding into saying that it's a caring for the results of your own effort. He says, and this leads to the fact that caring for oneself is an important aspect. But he's also made a certain shift here in this opinion of caring for oneself. So let's just go over this. He's saying you have to love others. That's the way he started off. There's a value of loving others, caring for others. Good. Then he says, is a value in you can't totally be like God of caring for others, because God can totally care like others because he has no needs. Human beings have needs, therefore you have to care for yourself, and therefore your caring for yourself is an important value as well. And that's the way God created you, with the measure of caring and love. Then he takes it another step and says this aspect of caring for yourself also results in the fact that you want to have the products of your own endeavor. Okay? It's not just a matter that I want more, it's a matter that you want to produce more. That's an aspect of caring for yourself also. You want the fruit of your own labor, okay? Which is a reflection of your own self-esteem. Okay, so this is an aspect where you talk in terms of selflessness. Selflessness is I have no concern whatsoever. Now he's saying, but wait a second, there is a value in self-concern, right? I got to take care of my needs. That value of self-concern also means you have this value in self-esteem. So the truth is that you see this balancing now further developing. Okay, in terms of saying I am into others, and I'm into myself, and my into myself includes the fact that I want to put effort in the results of myself. Okay? Now that already brings in a much more complex understanding of humanity. It also will touch upon things like humility and so forth and so forth. Because the truth of the matter is, you can look at the humble person as basically saying, what does it matter about me? I don't care. I don't care how anyone treats me. I don't care how anyone concerns me. I just care about others. But the point is if I have a concern for myself, then I'm not concerned about how people will treat me. I'm concerned about having the products of my own endeavors. So he's made a shift here from just saying self-concern is being concerned about chayecha kodmin, that I have enough food to eat. It means that I want to have some sense of self. My own self becomes significant. Okay? And that becomes the opening of a balance here. So he's now throwing out these two ideas. There's an idea of not being concerned about self, of caring for others. There's an idea of being concerned about self and caring about the self. And the question is how you balance it. Okay? And this is where he's going to go from here. Okay? How we're going to do it. But the fact is this is the way Jewish ethics really works. Yeah. You present an idea, then you present an opposite idea. And the fact is those ideas. So the truth of the matter is, in many ways, people make a mistake when they define things as between Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. Because it seems to be simplistic. You do find one thing is evil and one thing is good. The fact of the matter is most of our decisions is really between the balancing of two goods. It's not basically, choosing good over evil. It's choosing the appropriate good in this situation over the inappropriate good in this situation. Yeah. And that's usually how Jewish ethics define things. It's a very different perspective. Okay, so and you see this in many issues in halacha, where a simplistic idea of good and evil, in a more complex idea, you sit there and say, wait a second, defining what's good and what's evil is not so simple,
No.
and it's a matter of defining what is the appropriate behavior in this situation. Okay, and oftentimes, or sometimes, it seems to be people find it very strange that that's the appropriate behavior in that situation. You know? Okay? Okay. So we're going to go on from here. So, okay?